So we just heard about how cuts in U.S. foreign aid have left real gaps that private philanthropy alone can't fully cover, but it can play an important role. And in the midst of that, we're also seeing locally led ventures finding ways to adapt and keep driving impact. So to explore how funders can truly be partners and bring more than just money to the table, I'm joined by Doug Galen, CEO of Rippleworks, who I'll welcome to the stage. Please join me in welcoming Doug.
Don't go. What happened?
I believe,
wow.
I hope and believe that Sasha, Kara, and Sean are sticking around so you can still catch them later this morning. You don't have to flood to them now. Doug, thank you so much for joining us and for your partnership with Devex on this session. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Doug for quite a while. I spent about 8 years in California for Devex, covering the role of tech and philanthropy in global development, and Doug's name would come up quite a bit, so it's a pleasure to have you on stage. I want to start by just describing your model. So I mentioned earlier how funders can bring more than just money to the table. And Rippleworks' model certainly is an example of going beyond writing checks. In fact, writing checks is not what it's about. So tell us more about this model and how Rippleworks blends hands-on operational support with catalytic funding.
First of all, you and I met 10 years ago, which is pretty crazy. Right. And when we talked back then, Rippleworks was a dream. It wasn't a reality, it was just an idea. So I'm just having a moment being here 10 years later to talk about this, which is pretty amazing. Money is only half of the equation. And Rippleworks is my 6th company that I've helped build. The other 5, we were starving for capital. We didn't know how to do half the things we needed to know how to do, and we were growing really fast. And I knew that the other half of the equation to be able to achieve your potential is actually the capacity building. So the things that are needed to be able to scale is you have specific problems you need to solve, and you have long-term problems and you have short-term problems, and then you also need to build your management, your leadership team. So Rippleworks has 3 things that we do that has addressed these things. The first is that we create 2 to 4 month projects to focus on a top 3 challenge of the CEO. And we've now done 400 of these in 80 different countries. Then to address, I need something now, I need a quick fix, we created expert office hours, which is if you need something right now, we will create a session, we'll bring in an expert who will help you solve that. And then we've created a leader studio, which is a chance to do workshops for middle management to scale them up to the next level, which all of us are challenged to be able to meet the needs through our management team growing. And we've run 1,600 people through that. 1/10 of our staff gives money away. 90% of our staff focuses on providing these services to our portfolio.
It's really interesting to hear about the evolution of your model, because I remember when you and I were initially talking about Rippleworks, and in the early days, you would send people to these ventures to work with them, and I'm sure that still goes on. I'm guessing COVID was also part of the reason why there was a pivot to a virtual model, but it also makes a lot of sense for these ventures, I would think, to have the ability to get that virtual support as needed, in addition to in-person support.
Definitely. The point in time, I need something right now, and we can do that within 2 weeks, critically important. COVID sucked for all of us in so many ways. We did have to back off from going in person. Now we go back in person, it triples the speed of the impact that we can deliver if we can get in person.
And can you go ahead and just give us one example of what this looks like? Because I've talked with some of the people who are doing this work, but what's the kind of technical expertise, business know-how that could be really game-changing for a venture and that Rippleworks helps to provide? What's one example?
Let's see. Okay, anyone who's a parent, you're not allowed to have a favorite child, so I'm not picking a favorite child here, but I'm just thinking about smallholder farmers, northern Nigeria. A lot of youth go into Boko Haram and other types of things that are not good for the world. So Bob and Gona created a way for farmers to be able to increase their incomes. And so we met Bob and Gona years ago, and they were scaling to well over 100,000 farmers. And they needed help with a very specific problem, which was they could no longer go out to every field to be able, in those first 7 days in farming are critical. And did you space properly? Did you plant at the right time? Do you have any disease? What is happening? And so we helped them create a tool that would take a picture of the crop and then put it into machine learning and then come back with a recommendation. We brought in a PhD expert from a company called Shutterfly, which does digital photography, and created this app to do that. This was well before AI. Then we provided Bob and Gona working capital. Then we created expert office hours. We're helping them right now. They're building a tech-based platform, and they want to make it SaaS-enabled to charge for it. They're not exactly sure how to build that business model, so we're helping with that. And then 10 of their leaders have been through our Leader Studio program.
So I have to say, as someone who has spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, what I love about this model is there's often a critique of Silicon Valley, and the critique makes sense, that you have a lot of smart people with a lot of money solving problems that don't necessarily need solving, right? Like, how can I get my burrito delivered faster to me? When there are so many problems in the world that could use that money, that technical know-how, but they don't often have the mechanisms, or at least they don't see the pathways to provide that kind of support, and Rippleworks presents that. So can you talk more about how you connect the dots between, say, the Silicon Valley expertise and these locally led ventures who could benefit from those conversations?
Yeah, this actually started because 10 years ago when I wanted to do this, I didn't like the solutions that were out there. And
because you have a technical background.
Yeah.
Somewhat. You're from the tech space.
I'm from the tech space, yes. Anyone who knows me is laughing at that comment.
I should have clarified. You're from the tech space.
But what it was is Rippleworks, our job is to identify those organizations who are bold and most likely to deliver impact at scale. Yeah. Then it's focus on a problem that they have, not that we define. Then it's to find an expert who has that domain expertise. And here's where the secret sauce comes in. We don't work with just any expert. You must have international experience to some degree. You must be a listener. You must take into account the context of the situations, and you must be a coach. Because the job of our work is at the end of our project is to transfer knowledge to the organization. So you are a player coach. The last thing is you still have to have dirt underneath your fingernails that you can do the work that we do. These experts volunteer 2 to 5 hours a week. We design the project, we run the project, we hold everybody accountable, but then we bring in these experts who are begging to find meaning in their life, and this is a way for them to do it while they're maybe building Facebook ads or something.
So they're searching for meaning, but to make this a win-win for them and for the ventures, I know that there are a few key elements of your model. Trust is critical, and you also talk a lot about the right expertise at the right time. So what I love about that is those are cross-cutting lessons no matter what work you're doing in this space. So can you tell us a little bit more about what makes these collaborations effective? How is trust built in? You know, I love that you said these people must be listeners because trust doesn't happen without listening. Tell us more about the role of trust and then the role of right expertise at right time when it comes to these collaborations being effective.
I'm going to talk on trust for a minute. Sure. We'll see if we have enough time to get to the other. So I've been in philanthropy 10 years. Before, it's all consumer tech stuff. I came in with this hey, let's just go help. I didn't realize that I am stacked against decades of horrible power dynamics between funders and receiver of money. I had no idea. And so we have had to go on a very deliberate mission to, I'd love to say eliminate, but at least dramatically reduce the power dynamic. So trust is at the core of what we do. And I've had to evolve over time how to break that shattering power dynamic that is ridiculous that it exists. So how? Big things and little things. Big things. First, our core #1 value is we exist in service to our ventures. And we only hire for people who believe in being in service of something else. That is a huge opportunity right there that has allowed us to build trust. The other is Before we ever gave away $1 of money, we created focus groups from organizations and ventures to ask them what would be the dream funder. And we used that to design how we give money away. We measure our performance that we are graded on by the ventures. And we hold ourselves very sacred. 90% of our work has to be deemed effective. So those are the big things that we do to try to build trust. Little things. How many people are organizations out here? Okay, great. Don't you love sending out a report that someone's making you send out and no one ever responds and says you have no idea if they read it? I mean, it is ridiculous.
I'm on the receiving end of these reports, I have to say.
So first of all, we minimize reporting to the bare bones because we don't need to prove anything to anybody. It's our funds. And then we read everything and we send a note back to acknowledge it. It's a little thing to build trust. And so we really tried to think about both the little things and the big things. The other thing we do is when we're doing this work, we slow down to speed up. We slow down to take a minute to get to know the people that we're working with, because our second value is human connection. And we take the time to do our best to build human connection so that we can continue to break down the power dynamic. And I think the last thing is we ask for a lot of feedback. If anyone from our portfolio is here, you know we're always asking, how are we doing and what can we do better? We listen to it, we thank you, and we tell you what we're going to do with the feedback.
So this is super helpful to hear the formula, because I think trust, you know, any conversation you have on collaborations in this space, it all comes down to trust. So it's how do you build that trust? You mentioned we might be able to get to right expertise, right time. I did want to ask about that, especially in these very difficult times for many locally led ventures. Now, I know some of the ventures you work with may have more or less reliance on official development assistance versus other forms of capital, or they're for-profit social enterprises, for example. But I want to hear, especially in this year, difficult times for this work, how are leaders of locally led ventures rising to the challenge? And to what extent have you seen this right expertise, right time kind of support assist them in that effort?
I feel like I'm living two lives here at UNGA. One life is being with other funders who the world is crashing down, and we're talking about how rough the world is. And the other half are the ventures who are just dealing with it. So ventures are crushing it in that they're dealing with the reality of what's happened to their funding. If they have to make the brutal decisions to cut staff, they're doing it. And they're doing it with courage and brave. So ventures are showing up in this moment. And I think we as funders could be learning from ventures on how to show up, deal with reality, and move forward. So ventures are teaching us how to act. Yeah.
Are there, I know you said you don't like to pick favorites, but can you give a couple examples that come to mind, even just, you know, from a sector perspective, or in what ways they're dealing with it?
When we found out about USAID, still hard to believe what the hell happened. But the first thing we did is we asked who lost money, and within 5 business days we sent $100,000. And then we give all of our money up front. So in terms of trust, we don't do multi-year grants. We want to work with you. Here's all the money. So for the first time, we've done double down funding, where we've gone back to a handful of ventures who are expanding right now. So I'm not going to pick any favorites, other than I'm going to say that it's the courage to change your business model right now. And we are particularly, the way that we are rethinking this a little bit is we're getting a lot smarter about helping our ventures think about, you need to not just think about one revenue stream, you need to think about 3. And those who get it, who understand the need to iterate, it doesn't mean that you can do it all in one day. Also, those who are thinking about how to access government for scale, not necessarily money, not every government has that opportunity, but how to think about co-creating with government, those are organizations that we're particularly leaning into right now.
Interesting, very helpful. So looking ahead, you know, we've heard a little bit about Rippleworks' evolution over time, And you've held on to a lot of aspects of your model, but you've also pivoted over time based on the feedback you're getting from ventures. This is a moment when, as we're going to be discussing all day, philanthropy is being called on to step up. And I want to hear what's next for Rippleworks. What are you thinking about in terms of evolving your approach to meet this moment? And specifically, again, I think this is a very unique form of kind of funder-venture collaboration we don't often see. So what's next for you all?
First is be brave. So that means go to places we haven't gone to before, go to places that are underfunded. We just funded our first opportunity in Pakistan. We have never been there. It was a meaningful seven-figure check to Child Life, which has taken infant mortality from 12% to 1.2%, and they've never received international funding before. And now they have other offers that are coming in. And so we really love trying to be first in somewhere, either by geography or by sector. So one is be brave and challenge ourselves to go places that we haven't been. Second is to help our ventures raise money. Another organization recently did an analysis. We're part of the TED Audacious program. And an organization recently did analysis and said, hey, we are the #1 feeder of organizations to Audacious that get funding. And then they said, oh, actually there's one who's done more, and that's us. Huh. And I'm so proud of that our organizations are getting a meaningful amount that's coming through Audacious. The third thing that we're doing is, it was Cara who said, hey, if you've got money, why aren't you spending more in the previous session? We're doubling our payout this year. I don't know if we can do it forever, but we're doing it now because we need to.
Now is certainly the time, and we'll get a round of applause for that. Well, Doug, it's been really wonderful following your journey, and thank you for talking not just about your model, but lessons that others can apply to their work at this time where we're asking more funders to do more. So please join me in thanking Doug, and Doug, thanks for your partnership.